Hey, what is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer Leo King and Rich Lopp here for the Awakening Experience. We're here on YouTube and High Vibe TV. Make sure that you join us on High Vibe TV. You can go to highvibe.tv or click on any of our apps and download it and subscribe. What's going on, Rich?
What's up, dude?
It's good to have you, man. Last week's first show was kind of a, I don't know, it was a beginning, but it was awesome.
Yeah. That is the type of material that I think people really need in the spiritual community. You know, like what we talked about, and I don't want to keep going down those same pathways that we were talking about and keep hammering the same point, but you see a big issue in today's day and age with the split that's happening right now. And there's still so many people on the fence, and they're not sure who to follow, and they're spinning in circles. And I personally feel like it's getting to a point to where we can't afford to spin in circles anymore. It's
I agree.
Time to pick a side. And the people who don't, they're probably not gonna go with the higher vibration. If you don't choose what it is that you're gonna do, you're gonna fall off. So that's why I think it's really important to bring spirituality that actually makes sense, that you can apply to your life and anybody can understand and connect to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I mean, this show we're titling is The Fear of Truth, right? The fear of the truth, whether we're seeing it in the matrix itself or in our own lives. Like, we can understand a lot of these processes, whether it is through the manifestation or even things like you, right? You can understand tarot, or I can understand astrology, but there's a fear that you have to get through to actually apply it in life. And I think that that's a base of this awakening experience. Is it's more than the experience from like just an understanding standpoint. There's the application, there's the having to get involved, there's the act of willing to do it. And I think that becomes the hardest part for people, is people keep hearing so much, but how do you do it? And what are the examples? And what is there a way to really step into it in the best way that actually makes an effect on your life? And more importantly, it also affects everybody else around you in the collective, because that's the only way things are really going to change. We say that about our own life because that's true, but there's also that aspect now where it's not going to happen if only a couple people do it. It's just not going to, that's too much weight. Maybe that's a limiting belief, but I also think it's a syndrome that is part of the problem too, where some people think that they're the savior of the world. And that's just not going to happen by one person.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of ego issues, and what you was just talking about a minute ago with the fear of the truth, that the ego hates being wrong. And if you want to do something as simple as get on the manifestation path, one of the first things that you have to do is be willing to accept the fact that everything I thought I knew was wrong.
Yeah.
And the ego hates that. And that nobody's an exception to that. I hated it.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable. It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
But once you pretty much get to a point where you swallow that pill and you start seeing the results that it produces in your life whenever you start adapting new belief systems, then it becomes kind of addictive, and you want to run after that feeling. Well, what else was I wrong about?
Yeah.
And the more you lean into that, and like I said, to kind of branch off, what we really have to do is we have to help people understand that this is explained scientifically too.
Right.
The fact that it's not mainstream science, I think, is another big issue.
I mean, I think that you're right, because there's a couple issues. You brought up that ego, which to me feels like the personification that has an emptiness to it, because you're not really that passionate. It's a passion that you want to try to prove to people, maybe. Like, let's say if it's money, right? It's like, I want the money to prove to people that I can do the money. But if it's not doing something you love, or if it's not wholesome, then it just falls flat. Mm-hmm. But even, there's that fear, though, of whether it's to actually do the act of getting the money. But there's even, I think, the deeper fear of actually embodying who you are as the real truth of doing something that you really love in your life. But at the same time, there's a lot of that where it's getting confusing, I feel, for people out there. And I think that's what we're trying to, not even trying, that we are getting through these weeds and actually applying them in certain ways, because there's moments of surrender and then there's moments of, no, you can't just keep surrendering. And I feel like that's part of surrender that's really inhibiting so many people, is in the fear of actually facing that truth. That truth can be in many different places. The truth, though, has a feeling where it's like, I just know. When we were just doing just the intro clip to this, we both love doing it. We love doing the marketing and the fun of how to make the video and actually like putting it all together. It's because we love doing that stuff. So it's going to manifest well. But if you're just sitting around right now in life and you're like, I just don't, that frequency and that lower energy that you get in, or what you're watching, we've talked about that. I feel like, though, seeing what we've seen over the last couple of years, at least, there's been so much fear that frequency that's coming in too. And that actually is a frequency through our phones, television. We're at a point, though, that like, how much fear are we going to let ourselves live through? And I would like to know from you, do you think fear disguises itself in ways that look like you're on it when it really is a fear? Like can somebody be, because it reminds me of like faking it till you make it, especially like trying to act cool in front of a girl during the high school dances or something like that, right? Like trying to act like you were somebody, but really you're afraid to just, maybe you're afraid of her, or you're afraid of the truth of who you are, so you're trying to hide that you're a nerd maybe. So you're like, I'm going to wear this cool thing because I saw someone else do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so fear comes in all these ways that really fuck up the whole manifestation process, I feel.
Yeah, because one of the first things that I learned, for the people who don't know, there's a lot of people that do know, I learned a great deal of what I know, not all of it, but a good deal of it, by attending a mind mastery school. And that was one of the first things that we learned. This person said, you're not actually buying cars. You're not buying clothes. You're not buying houses. You're not buying expensive jewelry. What you're buying is other people's perceptions of those things.
Right.
And I remember when I first heard that, it didn't really click at first. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I think we are so wrapped up in that programming, like with what you were talking about, you know, well, I'm going to do this because somebody else did it. We are so programmed, and every single decision that we make, from the minute we get up to the way we style our hair, to the clothes we decide to wear, and we look in the mirror and check ourselves out and give ourselves the okay before we walk out the door, it all has to do with how we assume other people are going to perceive us. And the fear of breaking out of that and saying, I don't give a damn.
Right.
I don't care. And on that same note, like what you were talking about a minute ago with doing something that you love, that's kind of tangled in there with it, because I think one of the things that I've observed in my career is that a lot of people out there have no idea what they actually love.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll ask a client, imagine you wake up tomorrow and there's no such thing as money. What would you do? What would you do? Would you do what you do for free? People ask me, should I write this book I've been wanting to write? Should I start this YouTube channel I've been wanting to start? Should I? And I'm like, don't ask me if you should.
Yeah.
Would you do it for free? You know, and I know, like, when I started reading tarot, I didn't even know that it was possible to earn a living doing that.
Right.
I didn't even think that I was allowed to be a YouTube partner, because I was kicked out of the program 10 years ago. I had a monetized video that AdSense shut down for like invalid clicks on an ad or something like that. And this was back in like 2009, 10, something like that. And
that was right when it was getting started, that whole AdSense.
Yeah.
And all that. Yeah.
And everybody told me, it's over for you, dude. AdSense shut you down. You will never draw a check on YouTube ever again. So that was the idea that I had in my head. So in my mind, that wasn't even a possibility. Money was the last thing on my mind. I was so obsessed with the tarot. I found it so fascinating. And as soon as a career came and chased me and tackled me to the ground, I started running from it. You know, and I don't mean to trail off, but like,
no, actually, you bring up the fear, because I just want to stay on this point. there was a fear embedded in you that you lost the ability to be a YouTube creator with AdSense. And so automatically that became your truth. Fear can become truth too, to us.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, and other people saying, it's like in Hollywood when I did reality TV, you'll never be more than just that in television. You'll never go on a TV show, or you'll never be able to do any of those dreams you want. And I remember being like, I think you're just pissed that I'm doing reality TV because you ain't on it.
Yeah.
But then there's other parts in life where, you know, like you'll never get that girl. She only likes guys who have a car, to go back to what I was saying earlier. And it's like, oh man, so then you'll go and do everything that you don't want to do in life and everything, get it just to have a car, and then finally ask her out and she's like, that's not the real person who you are, who she probably would have liked, or maybe told you 20 years later at a high school reunion. But with your thing, it's like, I think you hit it really intense with the shoulds. Like, should I do this? It's like, nobody goes around, nobody, you didn't go ask, should I do a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know what they're really asking me? What they're really asking me is, if I do this, will I make money? That's what they're asking me. They don't even know whether or not they love it. People are so programmed to chase money that I'm inclined to believe that if I was to tell them, no, you won't make any money doing this, they won't fucking do it. Like they will literally, they've probably had this book that they want to write in their mind. They've been fantasizing about this for 10 years. And they will literally deprive themselves of doing something that they love just because it won't make money. And it's sad.
Yeah, because really that's where the power really is. I mean, taking off the first, episode we did about, you were under a bridge. I was kicked out of the military, out of jail, and it was astrology. It was all tarot. I think we're on the same page. Just all of it that opens the soul up and that allows us to see what the divine truth is. That there's a higher truth, right? That all these places connect. It's like all streams lead to one sea, right? It's like that. But all those streams are so exciting and so fun that it wasn't even about money. It was just about continuing to do all that. And some people think that, that won't happen, but it can happen so fast because the power of your love and connection to something that you want to do in your life. I remember I never believed I could be a DJ. And I was a promoter for years in the rave scene. And I would do the flyers at night, 2004 and 5. I'd be on ecstasy, watch this DJ, my favorite DJ, this one, yeah. I'd be walking the clubs. And I remember looking at a DJ being like, man, that's just too hard. I tried it once. There's the other thing, right? The fear of the truth is, well, I tried it once, it didn't work. And honestly, I don't know if I'll ever make money. DJs at that time weren't like now where it's like they make millions of dollars, right? It was like, I don't think I'll make money doing that. And that's not a job that fits in the matrix as far as how to be successful. But I remember I finally just said, I'm going to fucking figure this shit out because I love to do it too much. And I didn't put a lot of pressure at the same time as being the best. I just wanted to be able to know to do it. And once I got to that, that's when it's there's something that opens up that free forms you into your own way of doing it. And I wasn't paying attention to what are they playing? What are they doing? What are they, Same thing with tarot. It's not and I would like to know, when it comes to your own way of tarot, what was it for you that when you got into it, were you following the traditional Celtic spread, or did you just start throwing in your own way? Did you just find your own way immediately?
Yeah, for the most part, I had a list of maybe 10 readers that I would watch, and they all kind of did something a little bit different. And the only reason that I ever even picked those cards up was to try to gain clarity on a situation that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
I was not planning on being a tarot card reader. And I would be like, okay, well, they shuffle this way. Let me try that. That doesn't work. Let me try this. That kind of works. And I would just kind of mix stuff up. And I just kind of came up with my own little thing that it's a few things that were mixtures of things that I'd seen from other people and a few things that I just made up myself. And I was just reading my own situation. Mm-hmm. And that's what I brought to the camera when I put those videos on YouTube that I never thought anybody would watch. But yeah.
But when you were doing, how did you even, because I think this is going to help with our whole entire part of this show. Tarot is something that there's a fear to it, right? There's a fear of being looked at as the devil to, I think you said it best to me, and I think you said it on the last episode, like, it's like you bring a tarot deck in, some people think it's a Ouija board.
Yeah.
But did it just one day hit you to go do tarot, or was it really through watching others on YouTube, or was it something in more personal life that just showed up?
Well, it showed up in the form, like I just said, that I clicked on a tarot video because I kept seeing them scroll past my feed. And honestly, my first thought was, that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I would scroll past it and scroll past it. But a year before, somebody randomly gave me a tarot reading that was creepy accurate. She was like a psychic medium. So I remember thinking, well, I know tarot's legit because I've had a reading. But there ain't no way somebody recording a YouTube video can tell me anything about my life by reading for the sign of Aquarius. That's bullshit. And then one day I got so sick of seeing them being recommended to me in my feed, I was like, let me just see what this is about. Because this video has like 40,000 views. So obviously 40,000 people are watching it. Let's see what it's all about. And I watched it and like it told the story of a situation I was dealing with and left my jaw on the floor. So I just kind of became addicted to it for like 6 months. But it kept leading me in a circle, spinning in circles. I was like, I'm not getting the clarity that I'm looking for. And I was like, well, I'm broke. I make minimum wage. I can't afford to buy a personal reading. But fuck that. I don't want to buy a personal reading anyway. I'm going to take $18 up to the spiritual store. I'm going to buy me a deck of those little fuckers, and I'm going to learn that shit myself. And that's what I did. And I spent the next 3, 4, 5 months obsessively learning how to read them and taking notes and studying them and watching other readers. And then, but behind the scenes, I had been working on manifesting self-employment anyway. This was just a little hobby of mine that was a secret. I didn't want nobody to know that I was into it. It was embarrassing, you know? And on my days off when I was bored, I would make videos for my YouTube channel just for the fun of it, just to fill time. I would
some of those first ones that are my favorite ones of you just like sitting on the street talking about signs and what your experience has been. They're great, by the way, if you haven't seen them.
Yeah. And that's what I would do in my spare time. And finally it got to a point where I think like my third business that I had built crashed and burned. I was burnt out on trying to build businesses, and I was running out of shit to talk about on my YouTube channel. So I was like, I'm bored. I live in a town at this point. It was a town called Farmington, Maine. A town so small you can walk from one end to the other in like 15 minutes. I have nothing to do, nothing to talk about on my YouTube channel. And I'm like, well, I wonder what would happen if I put a couple of those tarot videos on my channel. Nah, I couldn't do that. I'd get laughed off the internet. I would lose my whole audience of 900. Nobody would watch it. Everybody would unsubscribe, and I'd be laughed off the internet.
A lot of fear.
Yep, exactly. And the voice just kept getting louder and louder until finally it was just driving me nuts. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let me just do the next couple of days I have off. Let me do Aries through Pisces, September 2018, just for the hell of it.
Right.
And I did it, uploaded it, and didn't even look at it. I was scared. I was too damn scared.
So that's a fear too.
Yeah. And next thing you know, my Facebook's blowing up. And I open it up, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, shit blew up, dude, overnight. And then right after that happened, I can tell the universe was like, I got you right where I need you. And then immediately after that, me and the girl I was dating, everything got weird between us. We broke up. I had to leave the job that I was working. The universe backed me into a corner to where I had no choice. This was my only source of income. And I was put in all these situations where it was like, you want some money? There's you pull out your tarot deck and go live, and I had to.
Which I gotta say, because that happened to me too. Like, it's the scariest fear of, which is actually when you re-engineer and go backwards, you're like, why was that so scary when that was the thing that changed my life fully? And I want to ask you, because I feel like it happens to everybody on the spiritual journey, whether you're psychic or into tarot, or even if you're into teaching manifestation or you're doing anything in this line. If you enter into it, whatever's not in that line anymore, especially relationship, just fucking goes. And especially relationship that you think would never go bad. It just will go, bye-bye.
Yep. Frequency equalization.
It's radical. But, you know, like I started on psychic hotline with phone number, like 99 to 199 a minute. And so like my whole thing was the fear of they're not going to want to stay on for more than 3 minutes, right? I want to be able to get the full thing of what's going on out of the person. Or I was on Yelp and people would call me at like 3 a.m. And this is back with phone lines. And I'd call me like, yeah, let me get your credit card number for the hour reading and do it over the phone. And I remember I was terrified to put that out. It's so weird. It's like, I don't even, you know what, to be honest, I can't remember the fear.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you can kind of help me and maybe others remember. Well, I mean, what was the real fear of putting it out when it's right in front of you? That's the thing I'm really wanting to understand for myself, even because it's been too long for me to remember that. I'm not going to lie. Like I kind of...
I mean, for me personally, it was, I didn't think I knew what I was doing. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't seriously know what I'm doing. I'm just guessing. I'm just throwing cards on the table and saying the first thing that comes to my mind and crossing my fingers. I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody's like, oh, that's so accurate and this and that and whoop, whoop, whoop. And like I said, after a few months, it had pretty much gotten to a point where everything had been stripped away from me and I had no choice. This was my only source of income. And I had no self-confidence at all. I was scared to death. And then there was this one time where I think I was live on Facebook and I was doing like little $25 questions or something like that. And the question that came through said, tell me about the new puppy. And so I flipping. And then all the cards came out, you know, 5 of Pentacles, 5 of Wands, 7 of Wands. I was like, oh, this is going to be a hard dog to train. Was this dog abused or abandoned or something like that? And then this little voice kicked in my head and said, you idiot. She said, a new puppy. You just made yourself look like a dumbass live. And I started sweating bullets. And I looked up at the screen and I went, does that resonate? And she said, yes, this dog was beaten, left on the side of the road for 6 months. And I went, oh, maybe I do know what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah.
And that from that moment, it's not like I immediately became the most confident person in the world, but that turned the light on. And I was like, oh.
I'm actually so grateful you just said all that, because now you make me remember. That's what it was there's the fear of what if you're going to be proper and it's actually efficient in what you're putting out. I don't think for me it was the fear of it being like taken as fake, or just to be able to be that it actually worked. I don't know what it is, you know, like where you throw those things out there, especially as an astrologer. I'm like, well, like their sun's here and the Pluto's doing this and all that. And this is what's going on and blah, 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 blah. And then there's that hole that takes over, right? That just like bam, 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 bam. And then it's always about the backup of the backup of the backup of the backup. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel. It's like, it's not just shooting some random shot of your thought into the wildness of the air and to give it to somebody. Mm-hmm. There's an actual process of the universe is backing it up infinitely fast. You can't even, faster than lightning. Just like bam, 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 bam. And then the answer.
Yeah.
Right? But then you look and then you wait to see if like,
yeah.
And I think it was 3 weeks of every day of like 4 people a day until I finally was like, okay, this shit, yeah, okay. I don't know what it is. And I think for anybody out there, the fear of truth can be looked at so many ways of like just the fear of that truth itself that you put out too. So it's the fear of the truth of what you have. And you said earlier that you were left with nothing, but basically you and your tarot card and a camera and a way to communicate. And honestly, The fear of truth is, I think, the subconscious fear of people knowing if I step into my spiritual truth, there's this, maybe it's built within us, I don't know, that everything is going to be taken away that's not in alignment with our highest truth. So it's like we attach ourselves to our, I'll put it politely, but I won't, our most toxic path.
Yeah.
We become addicted to the toxic path.
Yes, we do.
And that when you're in a moment when you're left alone with just that, because that's what it was for me. Like I remember I tried for years doing it and didn't get that much. Like I got some attention, but it wasn't providing me to survive. Like it was coming in little waves, and it was coming in places where I'm like Hail Marying fucking 99-yard passes and being like, whew, got through this week. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being like, oh, fuck, I don't. And I remember I was like, I felt so bad at my time. My girlfriend was like, we need to pay rent and all that shit. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go get this job. I used to be in boats, and I went, and I literally took a job to go do yacht consignment, limo consignment, and private plane consignment. But the owner was an insurance agent who had his own business. So he made a lot of money. So he just like made the website and was like, I want you to go out and build the connections of the yachts, the planes, and the limos. And then we'll just start going out there, and then just start going to all the high-end hotels and start telling them that we'll be their concierge and all that. So I remember being like, fuck, I'm basically going to do your whole entire business for you, and you're funding it, and you're keeping everything, and just going to call me a manager and pay me a little bit. But I was like, I need the money, I'll do it. And I remember doing that and being like, as I've been doing astrology, and I put that to the side for that couple, like 2 months. And I remember walking in my back then it wasn't Kohl's. It was like, TJ Maxx or whatever, fucking cheapest shit I could find to look nice. And walking in and trying to tell these Beverly Hills hotels, like, you should have your limo service with me. And they're like, yeah, right, buddy. Like, we've got people that have been set up for 30 years. Yeah. And I remember being like, why am I so afraid to go do what I want to do? And I think that was sometimes we have to have that moment where we fall back and go, and to see the fear. I remember the picture, I still have it on my Facebook, where I took a picture of me in the cheap suit and looking in the mirror and being like, I was like probably the worst moment of my life, realizing I'm backing away from my truth. I know I am. And then when I finally did it, it was the hurrah moment, but it came with everything falling apart after that. Yeah. So there's a lot of that fear that comes.
Yeah, that's cool though. I kind of wish that I had a story like that. It wasn't until after I kind of stumbled into it by accident. I mean, nothing's ever an accident, but my situation was more like I kind of accidentally stumbled into it. And then only then did I learn what you just said. And I kind of wish that it would sound cool if I could say that, I chose to do this. I was asking myself, why am I not living my dreams or whatever, and made that decision. But either way, though, I think one way or the other, it's shown to you. Yeah. And you're made to know that this is what you have to do one way or the other. And then you learn how to lean into it. And like we were saying earlier, I call it getting kind of addicted to that fear. It doesn't become fear anymore, because it becomes like you have to get so obsessed. You have to develop laser focus, tunnel vision. And I tell my clients all the time, something has to just snap in you. I had a client come to me the other day, and he said, I've been wanting to get this business started for a while, and I haven't been motivated to do it. What's holding me back? And I said, you just told me what's holding you back. You're holding you back.
It always is.
Yeah. He just told me that. I was like, you have to figure out some kind of sort of way to flip that switch in there and say, I'm going to do this. I'm climbing that mountain. One of these days, you're going to see either one of two things, either me waving from the top or me dead on the side, because I'm not going back.
And I'm glad that you don't go back.
Yeah.
Well, I have a big question about this because if you think about what we do and what others do out there, that fear is extreme. And even if people don't want to maybe say do this line of work or something, right? It's the same. It's the same manifestation that you have to face in your life. Like a lot of it is. I love how you say addicted because they're, in DJing there was like a brand that used to be called like Addicted and had like a needle of a fucking record, and I used to identify with that. Like, I fucking love it so much. But I feel like for people, there's like that other part where we can say we love it, but it's really not. It's like, well, I love that it provides this. I love that it helps me here. But we all can't deny the truth ever in our life, where it's like, whether you're looking at the owner of that business, like driving away with the life that they had made for themselves, like there's always that risk involved too. Like so that truth involves the risk, but the risk is not just the reward, but I feel like that the risk is not that scary because what you're in is riskier. Like I feel like the matrix itself or the programming, because I think, part of this episode is about the programming of the world and that truth that right now especially, but even our whole lives has been us sitting in what we've been told is true when it really is, the truth would be questionable, right? Like it needs more facts. There's not enough facts to actually say that this is really what it is. And so I feel like everybody in their life has this big choice, especially in these times. The last 3 years showed us everything that was said that was to be true was false.
Yeah.
I mean, like, like you look at it over and over again, and you're just like, wow, yeah, they used fear with the truth, which never is a true thing either. When you coerce truth as fear, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what your opinion is.
Well, if you're to talk about, I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, but to talk about the last 3 years, I ended up finding myself enveloped in fear as well. But it wasn't the same fear that everybody else was enveloped in. I knew this was coming, and I honestly did not think the population was that stupid. Like, with every ounce of my heart.
Right.
When they first started pulling this shit, trying to poke people with it, around the beginning of the year, I'm like, ain't nobody going to play that game. Nobody is going to play that game. Nobody is that stupid, because I had been on my little awakening path. And not only that, but like I've said, part of my path was I connected with people who were friends with people in global elite positions. Right. And I was forewarned that it was coming. So, but I had been enveloped in my own little bubble of awakening. And I don't know if this is just me or is it normal to think that, well, everybody must be doing this? Because I don't connect with very many people. I just pretty much stick to myself. I'm thinking everybody must be doing this. Everybody sits around and bitches all day. Everybody sits around and complains about what they don't like. Aren't you looking for the fucking solution? Right. I am. So everybody must be. If everybody's going to bitch, then everybody must be looking for the solution. Oh, no, they weren't. Oh, no, they weren't. So whenever all the toilet paper started flying off the shelves and shit, and everybody started putting this stupid fucking mask on, I'm like, oh my God. I got so scared. I was like, dude, you all are just going to march right into this? Right. And fucking take us all down? Are you fucking kidding me? I got scared to death because you're actually that stupid? Like, it freaked me out, dude. And I was paralyzed with fear for like the first 6 months because I just couldn't believe that the people fell for that. I could not believe it. And it took me a while. And Leah had to coach me through, because I fell off the train big time on that one. She had to pull me up out of that. Like, no, we're not taking that timeline. We're not taking that timeline. And I'm like, took me a good 6 months to pull myself up out of that and relax.
Well, I mean, I can agree that I think that my biggest fear through that was, was watching, for example, walking into a gas station and knowing that, I don't know, I love cars and I love going to the gas station. It's a guy. I think it's a guy thing. We like going to pump our gas and go inside and get a pack of cigarettes and get whatever. Just the basic little stupid shit like that, to where it was like, you're not following the program. Like everybody in the store, or even just the gas station person that I've known for 6 years, every fucking week going to. I was like, what? And then especially to have friends and people I know through school and all that be fucking so judgmental, and especially because I was trying to find a solution and asking questions.
Yeah.
To completely just be like, you know what? All right, like that's this timeline. But I think I dealt with it more in like a cocky way, which probably wasn't the best way.
Yeah.
Of being like, well, I guess you guys are just all stupid. The whole fucking fuck you or whatever. And but that still, like, I think the fear was me of watching how split the collective was going. Like it was like terrifying to me, because the work that's going to have to be done post it. But I think what's the most interesting is I think now more people, even people who fell for it, are more privy, I think, to what has happened and are questioning more every new thing that keeps coming down the line. So it was like the whole thing was part of the process to maybe do a greater part of the awakening than we had realized in the moment. Like, because I'm right there with you. For me, I kind of zoned out the world and only focused on putting out messages to the world that would be taken. I knew at the time too, I'm like, there's going to be more negative than positive, but as long as I just keep pushing through, eventually the light will get through the darkness. Like, and whoever's on that train on the same wavelength will be there. And I knew that there was other people out there that were doing it. And, it was able to be cool to find others doing it, but it was a small amount of people. But then there were a lot. And then, what frustrated me the most above all that was the people that knew it and knew what was true, but wouldn't say anything. And I'm not even talking, you don't have to be online. You don't have to, just not fucking saying it to the person that's next to us that's in the opposite place.
Yeah.
And being afraid to say something to somebody else. I'm like, how can you're really going to let your mom go do that right now? You're really going to let, or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, you're really going to not say anything?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, everybody has their own thing. And I'm like, I get that. We all make our own choices, but there comes a line where in life there has to be, it's not like intruding, but it's like, hey, there's a passion and there's a feeling, and you can't just like force somebody to watch something, then you're joining that negative team.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's one of those things to where it's like, I'm not afraid to ask you some questions and be like, are you sure? Like maybe look into it yourself. Unless you want more, come to me and I'll talk to you about it. At least I would do that. But it's like, man, to get the fucking people pissed at me for even doing that. I'm like, well, don't go watch all my videos right now then if you don't like just this conversation.
Man, it really, it helped my awakening too. One of the things that I had to come to terms with is there's no such thing as proof. It doesn't exist, because it doesn't matter if Jesus Christ comes and brings a signed document stating that it's true. If you refuse to believe it, doesn't matter. Right. And it drove me nuts, because I would try to tell people, dude, you have to understand, I already knew this was coming. And they just don't even want to hear it. Like, you're trying to tell them, dude, no, look, I have the evidence right here in my hand. And it's like, okay. All right then. What are you going to do? And some of the people that I looked up to, celebrities and public figures and even personal friends and family and whatnot that I greatly admired, falling into that. And I'm like, no, broke my heart to see so many of the people that I put on a pedestal fall right into that. And I don't think there's one person that wasn't affected by this. And I don't know about anybody else, but at least I feel like it affected me in a positive way.
Well, yeah, and honestly, if anything, I think individually it does for people or not, but I think that overall, looking at the bravery of the people that continued, that was the thing I just kept saying, like, at least there's some other brave ones, and we're all just staying the course. And it wasn't like pick a path and stay on it. It was like willing to still see what the other side is saying and adapt with, well, no, now you're just continuing the false timeline or the false truth completely. Where it's like to see the coercion of how to disrupt the truth. That's what scared me the most. But it was weird because I, of course, predicted this for so long that I built this network and I built this place knowingly that censorship was coming about this, the 2020 and 2021 transits. Like it's coming no matter what. So in 2017, formed the corporation for High Vibe and and built this all. And it was really weird because like the moment, I don't want to get all like weird, like it was some ark or something. But it felt like Noah's Ark. Like get the place together, get the app to the place to where it will have live and all this crazy shit, and then boom, it hit. But then I didn't stop on YouTube the whole time. While still having the arc though, where I could actually really go deeper and deeper and deeper and longer. Because YouTube started getting weird about titles. Yeah. You having to find all the little Q words, it wasn't a shot, it was just like the
Jabberoo.
I would always just do when that came out or whatever, like you had to come up with all these things. And I always felt like that's what's hard is you kind of have to do both, right? Like this is a weird reality we're in where what it did for me is realize, I hope that this has now made people realize that the whole world we live in and what's been built upon it has to be relooked at completely as because every stream to this sea led to a dead sea of just falsities everywhere. Which when we talk about manifestation in this show about really looking at awakening in the most amazing experience to actually have. It is an experience, but to get there, you have to first be willing to like drop so much of and that's a fear itself of like, the fear isn't that there is the truth and what the truth is. It's willing to be okay with, this is what's been told to me as truth, and I'm willing to put that to the side and willing to see what other aspects of life bring into this and what feels in alignment. Because really, if we take it to, I think, a more singular basic level, what's in alignment as a human, as somebody on this planet, and what we don't even know what this planet really is. That's I think that's the biggest fear of you have to get over is like, it might not be what we were told, and it's okay. Do we know exactly what it is? No, that's okay. I think that's the overarching kind of subconscious collective fear that's happening right now is some people might not even realize it, that they're realizing, shit, if this was all fake, how much of our history and what we've been told life's supposed to be. You look at the moon fucking videos and the shadows and the light, and you could see the pipes in the warehouse. Yeah. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, what else has there been?
You have to get to a point where, because it's well, how am I going to word this? It's the fear of the truth is the ego's fear of what people are going to think and letting go of your own identity. And I think it probably just comes back around to what people are going to think. But once you get to that point where you can let go of all that and you open up your mind and be willing to say to yourself, well, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe I'm living on a ball. Maybe I'm living on a flat disc. Maybe I'm living in a video game. I don't know. But you know what? I'm willing to find out. And I unfortunately think that a lot of people are going to have to get kicked down to rock bottom and be forced to let their guard down and open up and receive that. And I'm hoping to be able to arrest that process. And that's the reason why I teach manifestation. Because like I said in the last episode, if I can teach you how to do something as simple as manifest money or manifest more meaningful relationships or just something that simple, and you start playing with it, that's when you'll start realizing everything that has been programming you, you know? And that's my goal. My goal is to be able to do that, to stop you from doing what happened to me and getting kicked to rock bottom, living under a bridge, drinking a gallon of vodka a day, diving in dumpsters. That's what had to happen to me before my eyes started kind of peeping open.
Yeah.
You know?
Which, I mean, I'm sure just the smell alone, too. All the senses that go with that. But if you know, when you brought up the ego and it's worried about what other people, it reminds me of love, right? It's like, if you choose your romantic partner in this life based off trying to impress others instead of, or worried about what other people will think about that person, if you really love the person, it's not about what everybody's going to think. You know, like, that's like one of the things that you learn, I think, when you find a true partner like you have and like I have, like, where it's like people can make their opinions, and you and I being in the public, you can't be afraid of truth either. Like, hey, I'm in love and I'm in a relationship and I'm getting married. I'm doing all these things. And you can't be afraid of that truth either, of what people are going to think, because everybody thinks that they know what's best for you. Yeah. I know you know, especially in this world, like you and I have had to talk about, like, you know, we've had to talk with our girls too. We talked about that same talk. It's like, hey, you're going to get some backlash.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're going to get a lot of backlash.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to have to realize it's nothing to do with you at all. People have their own radicalized idea of what they think will fulfill the person that they feel is best for me or whatever. It's fucking crazy.
And the audience we reach is incredibly broken too.
It's true, especially when it comes to love.
Yeah.
But it, you know, after having the baby shower this weekend and showing pictures of it, people are like, oh, that's really what's going on. Because people don't get to see the whole thing. So that's the other thing, is you can't assume a truth, especially on another person, on what they're going through in their life and so forth, based upon, well, I saw a couple pictures, or I saw a story, or I saw this. And so that, you know what? I saw a video. I saw the way they talk that one time, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's just a fear of, like, okay, that's just their truth. Unless they're doing things that are aligned in such a way that actually is so bad for what the truth might be. And you don't know anybody's life and truth based off social media, which is, I think, the biggest thing they've conceived in the Matrix now, is creating that I know what somebody is because I see it through the lens of this fucking phone on this app. I know their life.
Yeah.
Which is like, wait, what? So it's the same thing of, because CNN and everybody said, and they show a death counter as if it's a fucking Olympic gold medal fucking time for weeks, where they're counting up all the, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, they're doing, or it's the stock market and they're just like, yep, the Dow's up today. More people are dying. And making that as if it's fucking, it was during the terrorist and shit, like orange, yellow, red day. Like, be careful to go to a movie theater. I remember that because they're like, oh, because the terrorists have been talking and chatter about wanting to bomb. There was no terrorist attacks that ever happened. Remember that? And I remember laughing because at least I was 21, 22, and I just got out of the military and I knew that it was all bullshit. And I remember laughing because 9/11 I thought was the awakener. I already thought everybody knew. Everybody was already there. So I'm like, you really are afraid to go to a movie theater and think that some terrorist is fucking coming all the way from the Middle East that wants to just bomb people? Like, and then you're painting the whole entire picture of Middle Eastern people as terrorists? Because then there was that whole, like, you know, if you were Middle Eastern in America, people were fucking judging that, or afraid.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends that are from Iran and all over. And I was like, they're the nicest people in the world. I don't, what the fuck's going on? But that lensing right now, that's been another part of this fear of, like, when you become in a place where you're afraid of somebody else to be happy.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
And then if you're somebody who's afraid of being happy yourself, that's, I think, when you're the most out of alignment you could be in life. Like, you're just like, I don't want that person to be happy and I'm not happy. Woo! Mm-hmm. And the way that they've put out all this shit now to make it end you into that's like the corner everybody's getting into. That's a real truth, like right there, like that. The way they've configured this shit and algorithms. I mean, yours is cats, mine's cars.
Yeah, they've been programming. They've been programming people to be addicted to negativity.
Yeah,
you know how many people pick up their phone and willingly go look for somebody that they hate.
I know.
And they sit and watch them and piss themselves off on purpose. You know why? Because their body is physiologically addicted to the chemicals produced from the brain by negative emotions because of what you just said. The conditioning and the lensing, as you put it. And it's gotten people addicted to anger, addicted to being pissed off. And it's been happening for decades and decades and decades. And that's why there are so many people out there who they don't want to see you happy. They have that lack mentality that your happiness is causing my sadness. I better not see you happy. They will desperately try to pull you off your path. And you know one thing that I think is really sad that I tell my subscribers this all the time. You get on a manifestation path and you really start doing it. And I mean, not just talking about it, not just watching videos. You start actually doing the damn thing. You're going to find at least one, if you're lucky, undercover hater in your very close circle of friends and family.
Oh, I would say it's more than one, but you're right.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. Yeah. I mean, especially it's usually a really close family member. Like it could be your mom. It could be your dad. As soon as you start doing better, they get pissed. They get mad. They're all in your corner when you're down at rock bottom, wanting, equity and inclusion and helping everybody and until you start helping yourself. Then once you climb up out of that, you're the evil person. You're the asshole. Oh, you have money? You having money is causing me to be broke. And how do you get them out of that mentality?
I mean, I think it's because there's, you know what it is? There's the counter always. There's the, you might be doing well, but I get to enjoy more of my life with a paid vacation for weeks, right? Like that's always what gets thrown. Or what about retirement? Or, like they go into the matrix, like, which by the way, all those things right now, as we're speaking about, are almost about to, they're crumbling.
Oh, yeah.
As we're talking on this episode, right? Like they're all crumbling, right? So it's like, imagine working your whole life and then, yeah, it'll be there for you, but wait. Or look at France, all the riots right now, because they just raised the age for retirement off their idea of Social Security, but the way they pay in there is like, when you reach 62, you get money to retire. Well, in France, they just raised it after a pandemic and after all these things. They're like, wait, what? I gotta go work more? And then I get it. So they're going crazy in France, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the idea, is like, it'll be there. One of those weird things about manifestation is the truth will always be in the future, but the main thing is remembering when there's some sort of guarantee from an outside source, especially a government per se, or even, you don't know, somebody could promise that they'll be nice to you for the rest of your life. You have to be willing to be okay with the fact, because you can't be afraid of the truth of like, they might hate me in 5 weeks or 15 years. But if they're a good person, we work through it, we'll move, and there's a lesson there. But the idea that it's guaranteed going to be there, just how Rome guaranteed and promised that they'd rule for 1,000 years or more, right? Like it's just like, and some people might be like, well, they did to the Catholic Church now or whatever. I mean, it's like still though, the idea though that there's something out there and it's going to be there. That's always the debate, is if like you're living too much in the moment and what about next week? Yeah. What about, and that's that fear aspect of I'm in a secure thing, but it's like, what about the business you work for? What if they don't make it, right? Like what if the government right now is about to go through another physical crisis right now because they can't do the debt, and they don't know about raising the debt ceiling. And right now, in the next like month and a half, if they don't choose, then the government shuts down and they don't pay everything. And that's happened before, but like, what if this happens longer?
Yeah. You said exactly what I was going to say, though, about what about the business you work for?
Right.
Because I remember when I very first started my YouTube channel, the girl I was dating at the time, she immediately flipped on me and got real weird. And that was one of the things she says, is that a stable income? As if her job was, it's like, well, what about the person that owns the company you work for? Like, they're in the same position that I'm in. They own a business. So your income is only stable if that person stays consistent and is on their shit. My income stays consistent if I'm consistent and on my shit. And the government, that retirement that's going to be there, it's only guaranteed if they stay consistent and on their shit and if they keep their word. And like if 2020 didn't prove to everybody that we don't know what the fuck's coming around the corner.
Right.
I don't know what will.
I mean, that's true, especially when you bring up stable. It reminds me of like the feeling of stability because the check's the same amount and it comes every 2 weeks. So it's kind of like, here's your hay as a horse, you know, like, and it shows up, but the horse doesn't know that the person who brings the hay in, the truck might break down, or what if the person who they get the hay from raises the rates on the hay, and then that farm has gone bad, or it was a bad season out of nowhere, right? There wasn't any rain and it was bad. And then one day the horse is like, you better figure it all out, right? But what if they can't figure it all out in that moment? It's like, as somebody, when you come into your true energy of your true alignment, whatever is aligned for you to come in, you become accepting of. There's moments where it's like, oh, I need a lot right now to get through, to get this done, to get this done, to get this done. And then there's times where it's like, it doesn't happen that week. But it's okay because maybe, you know, the biggest fear is like, shit, the bill's due in 5 days. Mm-hmm. But guess what? You have 5 fucking days. It's like learning to not be so scared of the wall that's not even at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's fear is creating the moment as if it's now when it's not there. Yeah. And so like that's, I think, one of those things, whether it's business or even doing this work, but in life, is that's what it's always come back to me. Or as if like, well, you're happy, but you work a lot more than I do. I'm like, yeah, but I love what I'm doing. So, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not at a bar on a Friday night getting drunk when I'm maybe reading a fucking book that's giving more info, or I'm creating a graphic that I love to do, that I go home, see my fiance and feel happier than can be. And she's doing the same thing for her stuff of her own creativity. And I don't know, it might also be about relationships, right? Like if you're, when I'm single doing it, it's not as big of a problem. I feel like, whatever, you know? But when you find a relationship, that relationship has to be willing to also be in their own way of finding their own manifestation power too, to where they understand you, you understand them, but they also have found their things they love, where you're not the one telling them what to love, right? Mm-hmm. I love having a partner that's independent and that has her own things. Because it's like, you know, it's like, it's not like she's going to be into fucking motors the same way I am. And God bless her heart for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. The same way that I'm learning a lot through, I'm about to have a baby girl. I have no idea. All these baby clothes look really cute of a girl's clothes, but this is a new territory for me. I've never dealt with this shit. And she's so into it, thank God. So she can show me the way. In many ways, right? Mm-hmm. It's not one of those things to where it's like she's forcing me to do it. I genuinely want to, and that's where she's great at. Or when she wants to learn something and I know how to do it, it's there, but it's not, hey, you need to do this and you're doing this. You know what I mean? Or you need to be looking into that. Or you need. that just, I feel like that's where it also can become to where people get caught up without realizing it. The deeper truth might be that partner's telling him to stay in that career because that's the fucking safe path and the security that we need to stay alive. And there's that really intense thing in relationships I find are way more the causal aspect of the shit that you get for people that do this work. It's always people, and they might not be looking at their partners embedding it in them, or they're embedding their partner with that, and they're the lead of that, and then they're getting their friend groups and all their people. Or you always see that there's sometimes those moms in life where they control the family and the husband and the group of women and their friends and everybody that they have to come through that fucking woman or man. It could be the other two, where it's like they like love to be the power of control of everything and the thought ideas and what's right and what's wrong. And you're not donating to that fucking group right now. Like, it's like, whoa. Mm-hmm. And people can get entrapped in people like that.
Yeah, that goes into what I deal with in my actual line of work with what I do, because, obviously I made a name for myself reading tarot cards about love situations. A relationship is something that you attract.
Yeah.
See, but the primary law is the law of vibration. The secondary law is the law of attraction. This means you only attract according to the frequency that you vibrate at. So whenever two people are coming together and it turns into that toxic dynamic, it has to do with the frequency you were on when you connected with them. And that's what I'm trying to educate people to understand.
That's the most important shit ever that you just said right there.
Yeah. And it's so difficult because we have been so brainwashed and so programmed to delay our happiness until after we're in a relationship that figuring out how to fill the void in your own heart and figuring out how to explain that to somebody is almost like trying to tell somebody they can breathe underwater. It's like they can't even wrap their mind around it. Like, what? You mean I'm supposed to be happy first? I'm supposed to be okay with myself first? It's like, how do you word that? Two people have to come together, aligned with each other's highest good. But as within, so without. You have to be aligned with your own highest good first.
Yeah.
The person that you attract into your life is a reflection of your current vibrational state. The problem most people out here have is they're looking for a person to be a solution to their vibrational state. See, it's not a relationship that we're looking for. Right. We're looking for true love and true happiness.
Yeah.
True love and true happiness is a vibrational state. Yeah. Vibration is the primary law. A relationship is something you attract. Attraction is the secondary law.
Right.
So you don't get the secondary law first and then the primary law second. That's backwards. But that's what you have everybody out here doing. And it's been programmed into our heads dating back to when my grandparents were kids, man. This is one of the many ways that the powers that be have kept us spinning in circles, going no fucking where. And I would argue, I don't know the exact numbers, so this is just a crapshoot, but I would say probably anywhere upwards of 75 to 80% of people go to their deathbed never attracting the person who aligns with their highest good.
I mean, I agree. I see that in the numbers, whether it's analytics from all of our spiritual data, right? It's 80% women, 20% men.
Yeah.
So if you think there's a bunch of women out there who don't vibrationally align because their man isn't spiritual.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we deal with the weird backlash if we get in a relationship. Is if you're a spiritual guy and you get in a relationship, most women are going to attack because, their guy ain't that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, there's like a weird subconscious. But when you brought up and this is weird because it's during the last 3 years, it's like when they started putting pictures up, and I don't know who did, right? Because that's where the weird shit is like there was so much manufacturing that was part of like a fucking schedule and a plan. Like now start putting up the couple pictures of people fucking kissing in masks. So to use an example of what you said, let's say you're single and the pandemic hit and you now are in a place to where let's say you bought the pandemic, you bought CNN and all the shit, right? And you're like fucking wearing your fucking custom mask. Okay. And out of nowhere, the vibrational match you get is somebody who's on the same page. Mm-hmm. They have their own custom mask and everything. And now you both together are watching CNN every night and you fall in love, and now together, that's a vibrational match. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but like that's just like how it works, right?
That's how it works.
Like you found your happiness with that mask, and now you take couples pictures in the masks, making out with the masks on, right? Which, you know, like I don't know. I think Shakespeare would have had a heart attack, but you know, like that's the whole interesting part of. But if you're, that's what was really weird. Like seeing the dating aspects of the last 3 years with those, it was a very interesting vibrational experience to witness as readers, but also just as a spiritual person watching it all fold down, right? It's like people and dating apps, it was just like bang, bang, boom, boom. People just are in and out and fucking thinking about, well, what about the one from prior? Right? It's like, maybe that was the right one. It's like, no, you came out of that vibration to come into this vibration to find this new energy of what's really in alignment for you in your life. And that's what's weird is they knew this coming into this, that they would vibrationally shift people, and either those couples would shift together or they'd break apart, and then now they'd come into the new dating pool and find the vibration of the fucking false truth and another person in that. And all you hear is about trauma bonding. This is different because people think, well, I'm not trauma bonded. Well, no, you're bonded through a frequency and a vibration that is exactly the part of you that has shown up to you that isn't your own, that was broadcasted by a centralized network intentionally to put you in a massive state of fear and to be okay with it. I just saw a floor mat just walking by an apartment the other day, and it literally says, if it ain't pizza or Amazon or you ain't or if you're Leonardo DiCaprio, you can come in. And I was just like, well, number one, unless you say you're 25 years old, Leonardo DiCaprio can walk in. Number two, the idea that also built that whole Amazon life, like people thought that was going to be their vibration, was like, I'm going to just sit at home, and it wasn't your idea.
Yeah.
It came through something else. And I think that's the hard part is original soul vibration and thought breaks away from what it is. So we get looked at as disruptors or rebels when really it's not even being a rebel, right? It's like being the self. I feel like a rebel is somebody who is leaving the true self to go to feel, because a rebellion usually is like, we're going to go do this together. And the rebellion was 80% of the population wanted to rebel against humanity itself.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I never even really thought about it like that. But yes, that is exactly the way that it works, though. Two people come together and they're a frequency match. And like it's hard not to judge, but there is no judgment involved. If you really want to look at it from an energetic perspective, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying good vibration, bad vibration. It doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person or a smart person or a dumb person. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's one person in LA and one person in New York, and they're both in relationships. They both get cheated on and left for somebody else. Okay? So they're both in a vibration of pain, devastation, resentment, anger. Well, let's say the person in New York hops on a plane and flies to LA. They come together. The first person, the way they respond to that vibration is they say, I could never do that to somebody. There is no way that I could ever be responsible for making somebody feel the way they just made me feel. The other person says, oh, so that's how love is? All right, fuck it. I ain't never letting nobody get close to my heart ever again. I'm lying, I'm cheating, fuck it, I don't care. They come together on that frequency. What do you think's gonna happen? We come together, the frequency that brought us together was pain, heartache, and sadness. So guess what? Pain, heartache, and sadness is gonna manifest between the two of us. That make sense?
It makes sense too much.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing the best that I can to try to help people understand. But then it's like, well, then how do I get out of pain, heartache, and sadness? Well, then that's when energy transmutation comes in, and transmuting it and climbing up out of it and trying to figure out a way.
So I have a really good one because this goes with what you said perfectly. Another way to look at it is through the last 3 years on the spiritual side of things, people were going, who is going to be my survival partner?
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that, but it was like, who to survive the apocalypse, to survive the downfall of civilization. That was the thing. Like, who's going to be my survival partner? It made me think of like, okay, well, there's a lot of the spiritual community saying this, but also at the same time, it's the idea and putting out the intention that we're all going to have to survive a destruction.
Yeah.
Right? And even me, I kind of for a second was like, well, because like I'm prepared. I got food. I got like shit and extra, some silver. And we all have our little like protective things. But that could be the same thing too, because I saw a lot of couples in the spiritual community being like, we're surviving the apocalypse together. We're moving together to this place and we're creating a safe place where there's fucking solar energy and da-da-da-da. And it's all based off that. But now, especially I know people that have been like, I moved out of California because there's no water. Now we're flooding.
Yeah.
The drought is gone. Like, right? So like that fear was based off the choices that were being made in the decision. But it's like, you can be spiritual, but not realize like, well, if we're going to put that timeline in there that we're like, it's one thing to say like, you never know. And that not being the fucking main ingredient of what it is. And I think people don't realize that the main ingredient can sometimes be so stupid, including the trauma bonding over being cheated on.
Yeah.
Right? But you attract that in, right? So there's a part of you have to look at it in yourself of like, were you thinking of someone else too? Mm-hmm. But you just didn't maybe do it. So of course that is what happened. So you could finally feel free to go to LA because that's what you really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that you wanted to be in a relationship, in a loving relationship and stay in New York. You were on Instagram every day having the idea and the vibration of being in LA and meeting somebody that was more in that kind of way. And then eventually that person cheated on you. I'm not saying it's right, but nobody wants to ever look at that or admit that in themselves. If that's the vibration you're bringing in, then you better look inside. And that's the biggest fear of people, the truth of who you are. Even the dark shadow shit. That like, it's the same way you go through a fear, there's something beautiful on the other side if you're willing to go through it. Mm-hmm. And that's that hard truth that it's okay if you fell for the shit over the last 2 years. If you're willing to look at it and get through it and see the other side, this is your greatest moment right now of manifesting everything differently. But it's like when you continue to go, no. Mm-hmm. And then want to just stay on that side because and then that's the other thing is it's created the creating of an energetic, vibrational, blocked wall. I can't even describe it, but it kind of feels like a frequency that's stuck, right? Like we're staying at this tune only, right? Like you see that in politics, right? Like, I don't care if the motherfucker does this or that. Staying on this fucking vibration only. And that's where I'm like, wow, so we're dealing with like the highest degree of so many ways of getting trapped, right? Especially if you think of politics or the identity, right? Because it's so much about identity, not just politics, identity politics like that people think, but just identity, spiritual identity based off a party, based off politics, or even based off the way of living through a world that was created to trap you in, even on the controlled opposition side, right? Mm-hmm. To feed into them, to donate into that, right? That it's like, that's where people I think are caught up in, to where they're stuck in if I do this, then that group won't like me. And I'm seeing that, I've said this, but in the spiritual community, especially because it's a lot more right wing, let's say now, right? More freedom oriented, more, right? Which is kind of weird because it was always liberals that were about being liberal and freedom of speech and yada, yada. Now it's like, nope, that's on the right. Okay. But it's like at the same time, like, oh, but I don't talk about Jesus Christ and read Bible verses. I do astrology and teach the universe and God. Oh, that aligns with the left more, though. They do the occult shit. So what it creates now is now you have a population of our collective that is too afraid to be fully themselves, whatever it is. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if fucking you like the Constitution and like your freedom, but you know, you do astrology and you do tarot. It's okay to be that and not give a fuck if the right doesn't like you, not give a fuck if the left doesn't like you because you don't wear a fucking mask, or that you want to drive a fucking V8 with a supercharger on it and have a loud ass exhaust. It doesn't matter. If you want to drive an electric car and you want to be on the right, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we're at a place to where it's become so crazy that it's about what you wear, what you drive, what you say, how you access God, to where this was the best fucking little Monopoly fucking game they ever had built forever and put us into it. And to break people out of this, because people think it's over, that's the best way they make it work too. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all over. No. Mm-hmm. It was installed. The installation's done. The game just started. Mm-hmm. Of how people are not realizing how there's an embedding of you just got updated with the new system. And boy, oh boy, if you're just going to keep turning that dial way harder on that without paying attention to this shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of scary. I mean, but fear is something that you have to rewire your brain to come out of. And you do it in small little baby steps. Like I said, a manifestation path is brilliant. That's how I did it, starting off on the manifestation path. I think most people, well, I can't say that, but a lot of people are wanting to manifest things like money or romance. For me, it was money. So what's one of the first things you have to learn how to do? You have to learn how to stop being afraid of money. So starting off there, I'm not worried about money. Rewiring your brain to not be worried about money is for me, it was the first step in unwiring my brain out of fear. I'm making minimum wage. My bills will get paid. My lights are not going to get turned off. My rent will get paid. I'm not going to end up under the bridge again. If I need gas to get somewhere, I'll get there. When I'm hungry, there will be food. And holding that for 6 months, 8 months, a year starts to unwire fear out of your mind.
Yeah.
And then it makes it a little bit easier to all these other fears that we were talking about. Fear of what other people are going to think. Okay, well, let me ask you this. This person thinks X about you, and then what? This person thinks I'm an asshole, and then what? I got news for you. The universe doesn't manifest your reality based off of other people's opinions. You are the only person who needs to know what your intentions are. But we're so worried about what other people think our intentions are that we spend our whole life trying to impress people that we don't fucking like, trying to get people to understand where we're coming from, who are dedicated to not understanding it because they want to twist it into their own little bullshit. And it's like, it doesn't matter what they think. The universe is not looking at me going, well, Rich, 10,000 people think that you're an asshole, so I have to punish you. It's not the way that it works. The universe is like, fuck what they think. I know where your heart is. I know what's on your mind. And that is one of the most important messages that I can leave to people, at least on this episode, is that, you know, if you find yourself getting hung up, worried about what somebody's going to think, you know, because again, cliches, like we talked about in the last episode, doesn't matter what people think. I'm trying to explain why it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You know, because it really doesn't. And wasting your energy making decisions based on what somebody is going to think, you're going to be spinning in circles your whole fucking life.
Well, I think what you've hit too is that you've hit that, if you think of the last 3 years, it created, it's like a cake. Coming into 2020, we all had the fears you're talking about. I want to manifest some money to just be able to live better and to hold that space and to rewire and to hold that space for a while to where you finally start turning the energy in the right direction. But what they added was this layer, that layer, that layer. And so what people I think right now have to do is go, let me drop all those fucking bullshit things right now and come right back to who I am and the simplicity of these things. Because if you get too caught up, they've added extra layers, right? Now you have to be afraid of what's going to happen if you fucking go outside. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God. Like, I mean, that's crazy if you think about it. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen if you go to somebody's house and they didn't, right? Like, people got caught up into that to where the dark forces knew, oh, they're not going to, we're going to break all those places that you held on to. Because now it's like, oh, I don't need to worry about money. It's going to come in for free for a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rewire now all that wiring I did to go, I don't need to keep practicing this. Because right before we went on this, what I said on the last episode is sometimes we fall off the tracks with it. And you called it last episode recertification.
Yeah.
And I feel like not only does it feel like recertification, but maybe it's a reminder for us all to always have to keep recertifying ourselves, that there is no point where you have reached total maximum of I am the best at it, that we all have to humble ourselves and be like, you know what? Am I on top of my shit? Am I doing it? Am I really going to recertify myself right now again and be like, you know what? Let me hold this just basic, most positive thing. Today's going to be a beautiful day. Mm-hmm. Today's going to be a good day. Today, if I'm going to have a challenge, it'll be met. There's always a solution. Because it's like, that's what, for me, I realized going on that truth trip to help people also made me lose the most basic things, to where I got lost into just trying to help people see truth without remembering you also at the same time have to come back to your own truth and your own wiring and your own simplicity to be able to do that. You have to do the maintenance. You know, it's one thing to say you have the fastest supercar in the world, but if you don't fucking change the oil, fuck. It might be a really nice car, but that motor's fucking more expensive than the car itself, and fucking it's blown up. You're done. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what's happened is a lot of people have forgotten the basic maintenance, which that's the key ingredient to get to where you don't have to be on that timeline of those it's a layered, crazy timeline that's false, that's heavy, and that has something, it almost feels like at every corner something's shooting at you with something, where that's not the way this not only was intended, but actually just is. This universe is crazy because there is a manifestation, but there's also manifestation that comes to try and trap people. It only is when you give consent to these things of life with your own power that you get trapped in. And I think that's a big one too, because we consent to our own fears. We consent to our own horrible thought patterns and affirmations. Because affirmations, what would be the inverse of that? That are negative. It would be just like what? Like being an asshole to yourself or complete. Or, I don't know.
That negative self-talk.
Negative self-talk.
We all do. We're all pretty much programmed to do that. And catching that is really hard because a lot of times it's programmed into our heads from when we were little kids. Like one thing one thing I used to say to myself all day, every day is, I'm a worthless piece of shit. I'm not good enough. And I've just been saying that to myself since I was a kid. I didn't even realize it. And then I heard Dr. Joe Dispenza say that the universe has no choice but to hand you evidence that supports what you believe. And the only thing a belief is a thought that you think over and over until it burns itself into your mind and runs all by itself on autopilot like a computer program. And when I heard that, I stepped back and I went, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that I don't think I'm a worthless piece of shit because my life sucks, but my life sucks because I've been telling myself I'm a worthless piece of shit my whole life? Is that really the way this works? Okay, well, we're going to see how that works. And I started telling myself I am successful. And it felt real weird, Felt real uncomfortable, felt strange. I'm working a minimum wage job. My whole outfit might cost $20 from the Goodwill,
Yeah.
And it's all dirty because I didn't even have a washing machine, dude. I had to hand wash my clothes in the bathtub with shampoo. So, yeah, telling myself I am successful felt real fucking weird. But I started doing this in 2018. And I would tell myself that all day, every day. And then 2019, I made my first 6 figures. And I was like, oh, shit. That's how this works then, isn't it? That's how this shit fucking works? For real? but you got to be dedicated. That's what affirmations are really supposed to do. For the people that follow me on Instagram, I just put a reel up about that right before I came in here today. And that's what affirmations are really intended to do. People, they'll say things like, oh, I try to say a couple of affirmations every now and then to assist. And it's like, no. That's like a 400-pound man saying, well, I tried to do a couple of sit-ups the other day. I'm still fat. It didn't work. It's like, no. You don't just do a couple of sit-ups and wake up thin and ripped. You got to go to the gym every day, for weeks and weeks and months and years until you burn that into your brain, and then a thin, fit body will manifest. And it's the same thing as these affirmations. You're affirming it to your subconscious mind, not some invisible sky daddy who's going to reach down from the clouds and help you out. It's your subconscious mind. I have to tell myself I am successful until I believe it, until it's running on autopilot, you know?
Well, and I think it's built off excuses. Like I remember when I was a meth head and I gave the excuses of like, well, I don't need to be off it. It keeps me going good, right? So it's like we could tell ourselves positive affirmations to really bad things in our life. Mm-hmm. I think that's what addiction can be, right? Because I remember people there was, this is back in the 2000s, there was people that just like, the idea was you have to go to rehab. Like you have to go to rehab if you ever were going to get off a drug.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, well, I don't want to go to fucking rehab. But at the time I also was like, I don't feel like I want to get off the drugs. So I was telling myself, what do you mean? It makes me great. It makes me more personal. It makes me wonderful. It makes me, every little affirmation was supporting that shit was good. Till every friend of mine literally was gone in jail, left their job, right? Like was just so gone. And I remember being like, fuck, all right, I turned it around. I can get off this and I will never touch it again. And I'm going to do that right now. And I did. And it was an affirmation that I kept. I remember for like a year, like people were still doing meth back in the day. And I was like, no, but I'm good. Cause I would tell myself every day, or if I was going out, I'm like, not going to do drugs. Not going to do it. I'm healthy. I'm focusing on my other things in life. And people always ask me like, how did you do? Cause people who knew me, how did you do all that and go through it and not go to rehab? I'm like, because I fucking just decided that that's not who I am and that's not my vibration. And I every day told myself that it wasn't about like saying it's not what I am. It was saying I am this.
Yes.
And it didn't have anything to do with that. It wasn't that I had to say I'm not going to do drugs. Actually, if I look at it, it was more like I am this and it's not part of that. It's just not, that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That idea that you can't cure addiction is bullshit.
Right.
It's bullshit. They're like, you are not a victim of your own brain.
Right.
I wish one of these days they gotta start teaching that you have the ability to rewrite your own brain with your own thoughts. And they've got to start making that mainstream. If they start making that mainstream science, if they start making that something that they teach in school, if they start making that something that they put in the movies and allude to in the music in some ways, this whole fucking game would fall apart in 5 years.
I know.
Whole fucking game.
Because that would really be, that would be one of the biggest turning points ever, because it would, I mean, but imagine funneling people. It's like a portal. Like, you know, we have portals to go pay for things in life, right? Imagine if you took people down a portal. I'm so used to having to do this way, but you take them in a new way. It might take a second, but eventually everybody, right? Most people pay digitally now. No, not many people use cash. And of course, you're trying to do that hardcore right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things to where, imagine society can move into beautiful places if we start putting these different things out there. I mean, if you just look at America, it's like, man, this place used to love being America. Now it's like, you know, my stepdad put up a fucking American flag and had a neighbor be like, that flag's racist. He's like, what are you looking at are you looking at the American flag? Right? And it's like, wow. Right? So it's like, things can change, but we are at a place to where the most important times are at this moment, because those that have felt called to this energy and to volunteer, it's in every skill that we have. And I know that most people watch you and I for astrology and tarot. But yet behind that, which I think it was interesting, you put up a reel just the other day about the intention behind you doing the tarot that you had done in 2020, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think more people need to hear, and what this show is going to be going into is what's behind the energy and the frequency of even to use those skills. Because if you use those talents, those skills, and those very, very powerful manifestation tools and spiritual tools, while not having your own alignment, but even understanding how alignment works correct, it could be detrimental to your life, those tools and skills, especially in how you give it out to other people. You know?
Yeah, you got to be very careful. Very careful. This job is no joke. It's no joke. Being a volunteer is real work. A lot of people out there, like we've been talking about, who they want to claim that they're a starseed and a light worker, you know, and it's like, God damn it, man. When you really are, it's no joke. It's not a persona that you put on to blow up your ego. It's fucking hard ass work, dude.
Yeah,
draining, taxing, frustrating, stressful work. And
it has its beautiful rewards that counter that, but it's like, in the process of doing it, it's definitely not easy as far as like, it's just easy because that's, I think, the big lie of the spiritual community is that it's easy in the wholesome sense of a soul and your whole life and what it's meant to be. But the processes of doing it and showing up every day and the dedication is something that's more dedicated than going to a 9 to 5 and working for 40 years. It's way more dedication. It's way, because it's in every breath you take the rest of your life. Like, and having to check yourself at points when you're off that track, just even a little, knowing the train will derail if you fucking go even a little bit too far off. The train can only sway just a little bit off the track and it will fly off. And you fuck up that one time majorly, that's a train, and we're seeing train wrecks all over the place, which is kind of interesting because, you know, I believe in signs like that. It's like there's a lot of train wreck stuff happening. It's easy to train wreck in this, and that's the one thing that you have to be the most dedicated with is in yourself, is to not train wreck. And even if maybe, I don't know, the train has to do an emergency stop and put on the brakes and barely does it before it hits something, at least it doesn't derail and you get back on, turn that fucking thing back on and get the engine going again and keep going, but never getting off the tracks. And that's something that's hard because things come at us in life that look so good or feel so good, but it can compromise all the work and compromise yourself. Like that's the hardest part of the work is the work itself is everything that you have, but it's the stuff that possibly could come in to try and take you off that, right?
When it will. And
the stuff that we could even create in ourselves of wanting to manifest that might not be in alignment with the tracks. That's the stuff you got to really, that's some magician card shit, you know?
Yeah. No, it will happen. It's inevitable when you get on that path, because there's many different reasons why, but you don't just get on the path and then it's smooth sailing. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There will be challenges and obstacles. And again, that's part of the path anyway.
Yeah.
You have to overcome those challenges and obstacles. There will be shit thrown at you. You will be tested. It's not that we got to get this idea out of our mind that one of these days we're going to cross this finish line and I have arrived, you know,
right.
Like the whole fucking, and we got to get that idea out of our mind, because you'll arrive and then you'll sit and chill for a little bit. And if, like we were talking about earlier, if you sit for too long, you'll start backsliding.
Right.
And it's really, really easy to fall into the wrong thing. Once you manifest what you want, then what? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there will be things that are thrown at you that I don't know if it's maybe the universe or the devil or your higher self or whatever mechanism is running your life experience is going to throw little tests at you. Do you want to take this timeline or you want to take that timeline?
Well, it reminds me, because I was going to use it as a joke, but it actually is serious. Like, yes, when you get on this path, it isn't smooth sailing, especially when we're trying to find the way through the ice wall and see what's on the other side. But it's one of those things like Lewis and Clark. They do their great expedition. They find the West. They go all the way to the shores of the West Coast. And then what do we do now? I guess we go back. Right? And they document animals and stuff and they come back, right? That's, I think, the problem when people go, well, yeah, like I want to get out and I want to see what's all this reality. And is there an ice wall? Does it lead to another part of a bigger Earth, or does it fall off? Does it but the whole thing is, it's not about that. It's about realizing that that's not being manifested by so many of us, because there's not a purpose of intention of when we do get there, what are we going to do? That has to be set. That has to be visualized. That has to be looked at. Because that's another thing on maybe our next episode we could talk about, is the visualization part of it, which is key, I feel, too. Like, you have to visualize it too, while being surrendered to, it's not going to look exactly at all the way you think it will, but the visualization helps in a way of being able to give yourself the understanding of, like, this, I want to go in this way, and there's feeling and emotion and thought that go with visualization, but that's, I think, the problem is everybody's visualizing, I want to see if Antarctica really is the end, or if that is the ice wall, or whatever, but nobody's thinking about, what would you do once you get on the other side of that? What would you do? Like, I don't know. What should I do? And that gets back to that anybody who is going to do it, or maybe the people who did, it was because that they had a purpose and meaning and intention to get to that. And nobody can be pissed about that either. That's one of those weird things to where, only the dark knows or whatever. I'm like, well, what if there's people of the light who know, and they kind of feel the same way that we started this convo of, like, well, I guess you all didn't get it.
Yeah.
That's some deep shit.
That is a good question. What would you do? And not only that, but like the world that we're headed to, because eventually all this shit's going to collapse. Then what are you going to do?
Right.
That's why it's so important that you unwire this matrix programming and stop chasing money. That's why I ask my clients all the time, what would you do if you woke up tomorrow and money doesn't exist? Because that's coming.
Yeah.
What would you do? What would you do? Who would you be?
Right.
What would you do with your time? Some people, I think they have this idea in their mind that would be so amazing to kick the feet back and do nothing. No, the fuck it wouldn't. Trust me, I did it for a year and I went nuts. What would you do? Most people have no idea who they really are. They have no idea what they actually love, what they really want to do. What would you do for free? And I remember I didn't. That's why I'm glad I fell into this line of work, because if I hadn't fallen into this line of work, there was nothing. I can remember being 25 years old, so depressed and just ready to end it. And I tried a couple of times, because I remember thinking, I don't want to do anything. Fuck this place. I don't want to do anything, Well,
and I think it has to deal with doing something out of service, because if I look at like what I used to do on my weekends, right, when I would get off my 9 to 5s, like it was like, yeah, I'd go, I was the weekend warrior, like going to the rave. And I love that. And it's part of my life. And at least I have that. And that's a hobby of mine. And I still DJ and I love that. But to do that my whole life, I would not be happy. That's something that I like to do and I love to do. But it's not something that I'd rather be of service, giving out information, talking to people, and coming up with ways of understanding the universe more and sharing that. And there's a million different things, but it's all based upon something that would be of service. And even though DJing is of service, I just would, I'd get over it, where I don't get over doing this. I wouldn't get over it. Like if I could play a 10-hour set and I won't get over it. But if you were to tell me to play a 10-hour set every day, I'd be like, I'm over it. I want a break.
Well, here's a thought that kind of scares me. What if we woke up tomorrow and everybody was wide awake? What would me and you do?
I think that's where we would be in a position to where it would be about, there's always something more. There'd be a new level.
Yeah. How would we go about it?
Or I have a theory. What if everybody that wants to leave and go back to heaven, they get there and there's nobody up there, and realize that everybody that's up there is down here right now doing the work. As above, so below. So if it's chaotic down here, it's chaotic up there.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
What if, when we say volunteer, what if they went upstairs and it's just a big boardroom and everybody's gone and it has just a message and it's like, sorry, we were actually down there the whole time. You guys have to wait.
Man, because that thought does kind of scare me every now and then, though. Because like I say, my goal, and as weird as this sounds, like if I was to actually be 100% successful with everything that I try to do, I'd put myself out of work. Like if all the people, the people that I reach are, no disrespect to anyone, but some of the most broken people on the planet. They have manifested themselves into a shithole. And they don't know how, and it's not their fault. It's all the programming and whatnot, because I did the same thing. But, what if I did figure out how to say that one thing that made the light come on in everybody's head and they woke up? They wouldn't need me.
I know, but it's not built that way. It's built for a bunch of us out there to be those individuals that together it encompasses to where if everybody's awake, that means we're all technically one at that moment.
Yeah.
So that would be a beautiful moment that would not be describable, because there wouldn't be the idea anymore of what would we do next. It would be a collective purpose that would be defined because a unique collective together would be defining it, which would be a pretty wild moment. But now, I think for the fact of, I remember being single for years and being very successful doing this and driving my fucking cars around and getting to a point where I'm like, I love doing that, but I'd get home and I would be like, oh, that was another weekend of, that was fun for a sec, but so like having a child for me right now is a huge part of my personal life and manifestation, and building a family. Like that's a part that I haven't got to yet that I'm at. There's always something that is more love, that's more of our creative energies and our love and all that is where we could always go. So I don't think that there would be a place where we'd be like, I don't know where to go next. It'd be just the next place that in the moment the love is pouring itself to go to. After maybe at that time it'd be like, okay, yeah, that was a lot. And we would be at that moment feeling like we were getting over it. Like if you think of the waves and the cycles, like it would just be like, yeah, I'm starting to get over this and everybody's starting to wake up. The fact that we're not getting over it means that there's a lot of people who still don't get it. That's just how it works, Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the signs, right? And I think that the reason why is because this crazy force has created the fear, then created no, it's all good now, when it's not. So it's making people now buy that. Everything's fine now. Everything is fine in the other true spiritual sense. But the idea of the system is fine that traps them. Mm-hmm. That's the part to wake people up from.
Yeah, it's going bye-bye.
Because when you take it to where it's like, the system's fucked up, look at what's happening, the world's coming down, and now to have people go, it's over. The system runs great and efficient. We learned a lot, didn't we? Oh, no. This is where it becomes more crucial. Is the moment when you start to, it's like crying wolf, right? So many times, and people are actually believing every time, instead of it being like, oh, now they're just doing something even crazier. It's like Little Red Riding Hood, and the wolf is wearing the nanny's clothes, and slipping into the bedrooms of everybody and being like, everything's just fine. That's some creepy shit, but fucking, that's how I'm looking at it. It's like, wait, what? Oh, great. We're out of the cycle astrologically of what was that crazy moment, but we're not fully out in other ways now. Now it's to where they're coming through with an update of that programming. Weirdly enough, this week with the big eclipse. So people don't want to identify with this weird, everything that feels so off right now, what makes no sense. That's another place that, because in yourself, if you're off and it doesn't make sense, you're out of alignment. If something out in the world feels off and doesn't make sense, that's off in alignment too. You might not know exactly what it is, but sometimes the truth is just the truth is what it is. It doesn't feel right. when you have a president who doesn't speak and doesn't say anything, or you have, people just acting as if nothing has happened, and when you were the one saying everything is wrong, and no, what do you mean? Everything's fine. And lies to you and then acts like they never did, which is really worse than gaslighting. It's worse than dealing with a narcissist. It's the next level. It's the highest level of like trauma when you affect the whole humanity, right? Like, and you're just still sitting up there fucking laughing, but not even laughing. You're acting as if nothing happened. Because people are normalizing that it was okay. Like, well, they did that. No big deal. At least now I don't have to wear a mask and go to 7-Eleven again. So it's like, that's the thing that's got me really driven to do that same wake up that you're describing, because it's like, are we going to just allow not only ourselves to collectively manifest this again worse? Because if that happened and it gets away this way, what else do they got down the pipeline? That was just a test. If they could do that off that, imagine if there was an actual asteroid coming our way or something or whatever, right? You could start thinking of the things and being like, wow, what people will do for, as Benjamin Franklin says, is famously quoted for, it's like those who will trade liberty for more safety don't deserve freedom.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully by the time it all comes crashing down again, those of us who are here doing this work will have done a sufficient amount. And I mean, I would love to think that everybody's going to wake wide up within the next year
right.
or so, but probably not going to quite happen that way, but at least people are waking up. You got to look at the bright side of it. There's some people out there, how they have the blue pill, the red pill, and then the black pill. People who are just doom and gloom and gloom and doom and doom and gloom and gloom and doom. And it's like, no, people are awakening. It's just slow as shit, but they are. There's a lot more people awake today than there were a year ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Good God. Now it's finally cool. Finally cool now. It's starting to become acceptable. So I'm kind of hoping that at least a sufficient, but before all this shit crashes, hopefully there's a sufficient number of the population awake to where we'll be able to carry ourselves through that shit into the new world.
I agree. And I think that the issue that now presents ourselves is just how there was things that were not acceptable to probably say over the last 3 years. Now comes the stuff in this moment that you would never even think are unacceptable to say, but it's the truth that has to be said. That that's where you're going to see, because if people were already afraid of saying, like, number one, there was no law saying any of the shit that you had to do anything. You literally manifested it yourself because you accepted that. But imagine now when it's like, okay, people are awakening up, but when you have to start to tell people, this one program in your life, this way that you access your religion, this way that you access, when you start getting into those really more deeper sensitive places, because they fucked with people with like lightly sensitive places. I'm taking your aisle away at Walmart that has this, right? So it's like, that's not that sensitive. Again, that's more just the fucking stupid program shit. But when you start getting into people's like really deep ingrained, very entrenched fucking programs of like religious aspects to the way that they feel that the earth and life is supposed to be, or what they think nature is, or what they think, right? Like starting to get into really some deep stuff here. That's programming that a lot of people aren't gonna,
It's coming.
And yeah, I think that's part of the awakening experience. So super glad everybody was here with us. Of course, follow Rich Lopp. He's at Rich Lopp pretty much everywhere. And of course, we'll be coming out and letting you all know. Rich is going to be doing an awesome manifestation series that he'll be doing on High Vibe, and some awesome stuff. We have too many stuff. We have to bring it all out. We're figuring all that stuff out right now. But we'll be doing the show every Monday on YouTube and on High Vibe TV. So you can go on High Vibe TV too to get the app or the website and the community that's on there as well. And make sure you follow Rich too at the same time.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. See you on the next one. Spread it around. Truly appreciate you all. Adios.